Session three. Session 3 will be interactive. We have a guest speaker who will take us through that session. Then the last activity will be issuing certificates, where we'll be given all those certificates for completing the 3 days. So as a recap for day 2, I'll invite Dr. Agar to take us through the last quiz that we had yesterday. Dr. Agar, are you ready?
I think that in their script. So, does everyone have their script? At least the ones who are wrong. Maybe we can go through the questions together. So, number 1. Number 1, what's the solution for a series of different types of fruits in the same area after growing season? But it's A, crop rotation. Then which sector is the second contributor to human-made greenhouse gas emissions? Number C, yes, animal agriculture. Animals. Actually, it's supposed to be animal and agriculture, but we also realize you are carrying out deforestation to create your places to put agriculture. In that process, there is a lot of carbon release into the atmosphere. Yeah. So what type of farming is defined by the creation of beneficial ecological outcomes? Number 3. B, regenerative. What is not a regenerative agricultural practice? Number 4. B, monoculture. Yep. So then 5. Regenerative agriculture is a holistic approach to farming that focuses on building and restoring water resources and systems. Regenerative agriculture benefits small-scale farmers. Localizing food production through urban farming provides A, benefits of regenerative agriculture, or the above indeed. Yes, the above. Yes. Yeah. Care of it. Cultivating produce means to A, prepare and work on land. What is regenerative agriculture? B, sustainable farming that builds soil health and captures carbon. The roles of nature-based solutions for urban resilience are except climate change. Then the benefits of urban drainage system, all the above indeed. Urban drainage systems are designed to B, transport surface water. Then the core benefits of clean cooking for climate, environment, and communities. Yeah, involvement in specific. What was can be classified as except C. Very good. Anyone who got all of them? Yes. Yeah. 3 people did. That is good. So now I want to invite Dr. Christine for the next presentation. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I can see everyone with a cup of tea. Should we take it away? Maybe then you'll have more energy. I think that is just removing all the energy instead of adding. So they want to look at investing in nature-based solutions because you have identified a challenge, a societal challenge. You have talked to the relevant stakeholders, and you see that with the idea, with the idea you have developed, you think that you can try to implement your NbS, but where are you going to get the money? And then what are some of the considerations you should put in place when you're thinking about this? This has been organized in different sessions. Some of the things that will be here, some could be cross-cutting, but sometimes the repetition brings emphasis, and then that is going to help us continue. So in the first session, we will look at defining ecosystem restoration and explain its importance, the types of ecosystems and ecosystem services. Some of this we looked at yesterday, so they might not dwell on it very much. So our first session is resilience through investing in ecosystems, knowledge, innovation, and transformation of risk management. If you have an ecosystem, and maybe it is prone to storms, to floods, and all the other things, how are you going to build resilience for the ecosystem and automatically in the community or community resilience? So that is what we want to look at today, because you find that here most of these things or decline in our ecosystems has associated risks. How do we try to manage some of these? Before I start, we have some words that I think that maybe we could try to explain or to define before we continue. We have resilience, we have knowledge, innovation, and then transformation before we add risk management. So from those 4 words, anyone to help us define any of them? Resilience, knowledge, innovation, and transformation. If you ask what any of those mean, how would you explain it as a layperson?
Resilience in this case can be the ability to carry through. To persist through a situation in a layman term.
Good, anyone to add on it? Anyone to add on resilience?
Good morning, everyone. I think resilience is the ability to bounce back after there has been a hazard or a disaster, or the ability to cope with a disaster.
Thank you. Someone to tell us knowledge. What is knowledge? Someone could say that you're knowledgeable in a given area. So what would that mean? Understanding?
Informed.
You're informed. So you find that here, all these are going to be correct. You have a better understanding, you're well informed in that particular area. And then innovation. Innovation is to discover. There's a hand up here.
Bringing new ideas
bringing new ideas and solutions that have a positive impact. Good. These days, they're asking about innovations in research or innovations in your area, in your office. If you asked to come up with an innovation, they want you to come up with a new idea that can be converted, let's say, into something that is going to be used by the different communities. And lastly, transformation. Come here.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. Transformation is changing something from the previous format to another format.
Someone to add on transformation? We shall work with that for now. If you want to change something from what it was originally, we could say that it has been transformed. But then we'll look at the different areas. If we are looking at a wetland, can we transform our wetland? Or what are some of the scenarios where we are going to? How has it gone back? So we're going to look at some of the definitions. One of them that we have seen earlier is resilience, where you find that here, where we are looking at the capacity of a social, economic, and environmental system to cope with a hazardous event or trend or disturbance, responding or organizing in ways that maintain their essential function, identity, and structure, while also maintaining the capacity for adaptation, learning, and transformation. I think we can see that it is really a mouthful, but at least what we are interested in the space of a disaster or a hazard, can you cope with the effects? And then you transform back to where you started from. This was adapted from the IPCC definition that was used in the Arctic Council in 2013. And then you also find that here, we could also look at it as the ability of a system, community, or society exposed to hazards to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt, transform, and recover from the effects in a timely and efficient manner. Because you find that if it is taking a lot of time, then we could say that there is something else that we need to do to make it move a little faster. Because if you're resilient, but you're taking 2 weeks or even a month to recover from the after effects, then I don't think you're going to be resilient. Because the longer the problem persists, then the danger or the disadvantages from these different events are going to affect what you're going actually to do. And if we are looking at these ecosystems, we also need our ecosystems to become resilient. So these ecosystems should also be able to respond to change without altering its basic structure or with only minor modifications. If this is not happening, then we have to do something better. Or we could also say that a natural system should absorb the effects of the change, reorganize itself, and adapt to the new context while maintaining its previous structure and function. We're looking at adaptation and mitigation. So each of these are going to, you find that they're always going to be hand in
hand, because even when your idea is very good, but its effects are not being felt by the communities, you find that this is always going to affect us. And then lastly, the community resilience. The communities should be able to withstand and recover quickly from environmental impacts. We have storms, droughts, and floods. If we look at the example of River Nyamwamba in Kasese, I think we could say that the community is not yet resilient, even when different systems have been put in place. You find that each time flooding happens, you find that it's like we are going back to level or nowhere, because you find that as Stephen explained yesterday, they had put up the structures, but the river found a way of what? Going above the barrier, and then the river banks are bursting again. Even when the communities when the ministry feels that they've done what is good enough, you find that there is already something else that is happening within the system. So this ecosystem resilience is going to be based on what we looked at about climate change. You find that here, most of the NbS solutions are focusing on climate change, because we know that the impacts of climate change are actually going to be felt across the different ecosystems. We need our temperature to be maintained to below 1.5 degrees centigrade. Then we are sure that we can stop biodiversity loss. Then land degradation is also going to stop. And then, apart from that, as we work on this climate, then we need to increase investment in nature-based solutions. And I think this money is not so little. If we are looking at Uganda, which is already in debt, do you think we can also contribute to this investment in NbS to a certain extent, so that we can realize the different targets? And then when we also look at one of the visions, the world visions of 2050, we have 9 billion people. Can we live well within our boundaries without any effects? Yes? I picked up your hand. But you won't scare me.
I want to ask something.
Yes.
I want to believe that communities are more resilient using their traditional knowledge systems. And when you introduce new things, because we want heavy structure.
Yes, I was saying that my belief is that the resilience of communities sometimes is more achieved using their traditional ways, knowledge, of sustaining those particular ecosystems. And when we believe that we invest in new infrastructure and all that, the one that exposes these ecosystems and other aspects of environment to vulnerability or risks. So I don't believe a lot in just investment, but sustaining what was before, because that's what we want to recover. I don't know if I divert from what you are suggesting.
Someone to respond to him? We said, or I say, that for community resilience, we want our communities to recover from the impacts after an event has taken place. Yes, even when we build this infrastructure, of course, we need the communities to be or to participate in the different engagements, that all the different ideas that we are coming up with. And at any one time, of course, the knowledge of the people is going to be very important. However, something new would look ideal. We should also look at what knowledge they have to, or the knowledge that they already have to help us in the transformation, as we shall see. Knowledge and transformation is going to be important, because when we look at the knowledge that these communities already have, then we are going to start from an informed point of view. It's not like you're going to come out of nowhere. It is going to take place in stages. That is why we have the knowledge, innovation, and then the transformation, because they always have to have a starting point. Because you find that here, sometimes the communities are also resistant to the changes, or even to the infrastructure changes. If someone, let's say, has grown up in a community where they're living in, let's say, a grass-patched house, and you want them to live in a bungalow, isolated from one another, you find that that community, of course, you're going to find a lot of resistance, because what they know is that they always have to be within a community setting. So if you want to build your structures and then try to separate them into different areas, I don't think it will be very easy for you to achieve that, unless you get all their ideas and then you ask, what can we do better in order for us to realize our goal? Richard, is that okay?
Good report, but the change many times.
Yes, these changes that we usually bring, innovation is something that we take as if it is a totally new thing. But people have been innovating their own ways. But I think sometimes when we are the elite people who want to invest, they take innovation different, or sometimes just basically copy. Someone speaking something from maybe the USA, or localized in Uganda, but it's not a fit at that point in time. So even the awareness creation for this particular new development is not there, because they don't know how to communicate, they don't know how best to communicate, it's a totally new thing. So that's why I believe that before an occurrence, people, communities are already resilient enough, they know they know how to go about the situation. Until that time, when probably the test for time.
Yes. I disagree somehow with Richard, because innovation is very, very important, and we must give our thinking or our way of seeing things open, learning new things. That's what I think. But we can't stick to 1900 thinking, and we don't move forward when the whole world is moving forward. It's like not putting on clothes. What if you brought and then somebody says, we used to put on the animal skins. I mean,
that's perfect.
No, it's not bad.
Compare urbanization, for example, we are focusing on the built environment, putting structures, and you're getting rid of the trees.
No, not really. You
You
plan to.
That's why we go back to talking about green cities, garden cities, and all that, because we want to reintroduce what used to be, but they destroyed because of infrastructure.
Yeah, but you cannot keep the Mukoteko of Katanga of whatever.
We start from
You can't improve the infrastructure.
Let's start from there.
Moderator, you're going to be protected. Can I continue with the presentation? You see what ideas I have, and you see if some of them won't answer the questions that you're bringing up here. Because as I said here, or as we keep saying before, these are just suggestions. Sometimes our perspectives cannot reach it. Our perspectives are not going to be the same at any one time. And you find that here, let's be open. Of course, we know that our communities are what? Resilient. But what can we do better? Because if we have to always keep waiting for an event to happen, you find that it is not going to be actually it's not going to be very easy. And that is why we are saying here, some of the communities have not yet been able to address some of the challenges which are facing the global community. We have almost the same. We have the climate crisis, nature loss, and of course the inequality. The gaps keep growing and growing bigger. So what can we do about some of these? So what are some of the elements which are going to contribute to building resilient ecosystems? One of them that we have already mentioned is knowledge. Yesterday we looked at ecosystem services, and we say once we understand the benefits provided by these ecosystems, then you find that it is going to become very easy for us to try and maintain them at the level at which they are going to still help us in flood control, water purification, etc. Just like for the case of the biodiversity, if we have the different species, how are they helping us to maintain the ecosystem health and resilience, and of course the traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge and local knowledge systems also have helped us to manage these ecosystems sustainably. So you're not going to come with new knowledge. You also have to look at the indigenous knowledge, the local knowledge, what the people already know, what has been passed down onto them, so that you can relate the different knowledge, so that you can come up with a new idea. When we look at the innovation, and we could say that nature-based solution is an innovation. As we have said before, we have been planting trees. But if we are to sell planting trees as an NbS, what needs to be done? What are the benefits that we are going to obtain from them? Is it addressing a societal challenge? Is it going to benefit the people? And then is it also benefiting the community in line with nature? Because you find that here, most of these strategies are going to help us in the different areas, or they're going to help us address the different environmental challenges. As we saw for the example of the urban green spaces, they're helping us to reduce the effects of the heat. Sometimes you have heat islands. You're passing through Kampala and you feel like all the rays of the sun are just pouring onto your face. So that would mean that if we come up with an idea of creating a park, a green park within Kampala, we know its benefits. So that we are going to also refer to that as innovation. And we shouldn't also forget the technology or the technology integration. These days, technology is the way to go. We need to combine the analog and the digital to help us come up with something better. The good thing with technology, it is going to help us to predict some of the future events that are going to happen. If we are saying that maybe, usually, sometimes even when they tell us wrong weather forecasts, at least they tell us we're expecting rain. you can plant your crops. And then you plant your crops, and what happens is like a dry spell out of what? Nowhere. But if we have the databases, we can have, or we can use our models, all the different data we have collected, and use it to predict future events. Just like, climate change is with us. But we are not going to say that this climate change has come out of nowhere, because we have the different data sets to back this up. At least the technology can help us to predict some of these changes, like the early warning signals. These days, if there is an earthquake, or if what happens within the earthquakes, sometimes they tell the people, prepare. Do you think if they didn't have this technology, they would be able to do this? So that is how the technology integration is going to actually help us. And then, of course, this has to go hand in hand with sustainable practices. We have to develop and promote practices at any one time that enhance ecosystem resilience. If we are doing farming practices, we shouldn't just remove all the nutrients. Like what is happening these days, we are adding fertilizers. We are spraying our crops. What is the effect of those, let's say, pesticides on the microorganisms that are present in the soil? Because we also had that we have the greenhouses where flowers are planted. They're using chemicals to keep the beauty of their flowers. But sometimes they're also using chemicals which are dangerous to the bees. So you're planting your mangoes and you're not seeing any mango. Yet you see you have all the insects which could pollinate your mango are around. But why isn't it happening? Some of these effects, we are the ones who are actually causing them. So we have to change how we are doing some of this. Let's say the agriculture, these days they are promoting organic farming. But this organic farming, there are also some fertilizers which are specific for an organic farmer. But unless we know the composition of some of these fertilizers we are using, we shouldn't, I could say, it is not always good to just follow the bandwagon. Look at what is being sold to you and then find out, is it going to give you the effect or the result that you're interested in? Some days we hear this works and the next day you're in container village. And what happens after you've used it, you don't want to even tell your neighbor, but it is on the market. And we also have the standards. So what are we going to do about it? So, and then for transformation, there are also some key areas that we are going to look at: policy and governance. Our policies should support some of the approaches to risk management and participatory governance. If our policies are contradicting what we are doing, you find that it becomes a little hard for us to do what? To go on with what we are doing. We could also have financial mechanisms, investing in green bonds, ecosystem service payments. At least we've all heard of carbon trading. If you have your forest, there are some carbon credits you get, and there's some benefits that you're obtaining. And then above all, we should empower our communities to participate in decision making, and automatically they're going to benefit from ecosystem services. If our communities are left behind, however good our solution or our innovation is, you find that usually it never takes off. And I'm sure most of the success stories within the different projects that we are doing, if the communities are involved at all times, you find that you're always going to be successful. So for the case of risk management, we are looking at disaster risk reduction. Like for the case of ecosystems, we can use bamboo, wetlands. These ones are helping us to reduce the storms and then erosion, especially along the mountain areas or even the riverbanks. We want to stabilize the soils and then reduce all the impact of the water. We've already talked about climate adaptation. What are we going to, or what can be done better in order to help our ecosystems to cope with the extremes in temperature? And then, of course, sustainable development. As we say, most of the NbS strategies are fitting into the SDGs. If you're not yet on board with the SDGs, I think we can go back and try to read through them. You can always choose one which speaks to you, and then you see how can you do it better to help us contribute to this. And I posed a question for you. Based on the region you come from, what can be done to contribute to disaster risk reduction? Can we have a few volunteers? Like 3. I'm sure we'll have people from different regions. Yes?
The having other warnings so that and the information communication system so that when there is something likely to happen, people are already knowing. Like in the community, others use like drums or anything, that when there is something happening, there is a community that use to communicate. That the people, if you are in the mountain, you communicate the lower one, will understand there is a danger coming, then you shift. I've been like, for me, I was in one of the mountains, when one of the river, the flow was high. So communities would shout from the upper, and then the lower one did not know that they were communicating that the river has overflowed and is sweeping out all the bridges. So, and people, if you had just said you can't cross the other one, you stay there. So they were using it as a simple way of communicating that there is danger coming, you get alert. So the other warnings are better.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I come from Kawale, and I believe there are risks associated with that region. What I can contribute to that question, in addition to early warning, I'll just give you an example. There used to be, I think, of tornadoes. Sharp, I don't know what you call it in English. And as he was saying, we used to shout. Recently, I took my children for Christmas, and I was afraid of that. Last year. Okay. There was a shutter. I don't know whether it's a tornado or what. So we did the shouting at night. My children got so scared. So I tried to explain that as we were growing up, actually, they used to be very frequent. And the only way we could manage as a community was to shout. And you would have to leave the house because you do not know where it's going to hit, and you do not know where the water is going to come from. So you have to adapt, to go outside and be on the lookout where the water is going to gush out from.
Then when it comes to farming, when I was growing up, I used to see terraces, and actually I didn't know what these were for. Of course, they would just tell us it will reduce the erosion, but now I have come to understand really how important they are. So some of those sustainable practices are very vital. Tree planting, especially on the slopes of those mountains or hills, is also very key. Thank you. And maybe additionally, investing the site livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. My experience was when I was managing a large farm using mango. And the risk was coming from wild demand coffee. So the communities within the area, even around the farm, were experiencing a lot of threats from elephants. There are mango farms. So what they did was, whenever there would be any kind of elephant invasion, they were using two methods to communicate. One was smoke. It was during daytime, they would use smoke. One would just set some fire in the compound and produce smoke. And that the elephants would immediately sense and go back. But at night, it would be difficult for others to see you making your smoke something. So this time they would use the noise. There is a particular noise they would make, not any ordinary noise. Somebody would make that kind of weird noise, and you realize elephants are already around. They didn't try to command from entering the garden. But other animals come, for them they will have no problem, except the one bringing them. There is to the other dog. Thank you.
That one is fair.
Yeah, the high
High pitch, they can't stand high pitch, very high pitch noises. Yeah. Finally, Richard.
That's what we did. We said, but we are now at.
Okay, I'll just, it's something that I saw, I come from Zimbabwe. And something that they use in the mountains. Something that is used in the mountains is during the rain seasons, the water actually comes from down up. So when they begin to see that water coming out of the ground, they know that there is a likelihood of a landslide. Means that the saturation low. So that is one. Another one is the mountain. Those in at the lower ends, they look at the mountain. When you look at Wanale, it has the rivers flowing down. So you are able to see the flow and the color of the water. And people cannot, in the lowlands, can know that there is disaster coming, so they move. So those in the mountains see the water coming up, but those in the lowlands usually observe the mountain. Thank you very much. I think we already have all the knowledge. So now how are we going to convert this knowledge to help us build stronger ideas or barriers to all these risks which we are actually exposed to? So when we are looking at the options available to increase community resilience against these impacts, the communities need to weigh the benefits and costs of structural investments versus environmental investments. Because you find that in most cases, most of the structures, like the flood walls, the lifts and dams, are very expensive. But you find that in some scenarios, the NbS solutions are considered a cheaper option. But as we say, if you find that this NbS is not enough, enforce it or enhance it with a great structure so that you build, you have a strategy that is going to be foolproof against any event or any eventuality that might actually happen. When I look at this session here, we want healthy ecosystems, important allies in reducing risk and increasing resilience for people and the environment. Most of you must be asking, why are we say we are going to look at investing in NbS, but why are we looking at resilience of ecosystems? Because we find that this is going to help us in the build-up of what we are going to happen. So when most of our ecosystems are degraded, of course, we know the impacts. We become vulnerable to climate risks, which of course are going to contribute to loss of the resources, which would be helpful to us. So if we are using NbS, we can protect the livelihoods and the human well-being, which is going to help us to adapt better to the changes. And then, of course, across the different ecosystems, we can use different NbS to protect people against the changes, shorter-term hazards, flooding, and then longer-term threats like desertification. You find that all these as a result of an effect they are both climate impacts. What are we going to do about the short term and then the longer term? Because you find that at any one time, they're all going to affect. So reducing the risks at any one time is going to be important. And when we look at this, we look at the different groups of people, what we refer to as the vulnerable and marginalized groups, women, indigenous people, and then the elderly people living in poverty, and then those with disabilities. We also, because you find that in most cases, they're all dependent on these natural resources for their livelihoods. It is very hard to find a man collecting firewood. So we don't expect that these men are going to be exposed to some of these changes. So in some of these areas, you find that women are always considered as the vulnerable groups. Young girls are being sent to fetch water from long distances. In some cases, the girls are being raped. So when you look at all these scenarios, you find that it is better to help us protect our environment or to help the communities as we look at the changing ecosystems. But at any one time, we need to continue sensitizing the communities. Uninformed community is a very powerful one, because once they know what they're supposed to do, and once they also agree with each other, you find that it is going to be very easy for you to achieve what you are interested in, unlike when you want to just dictate to them what you are interested in. So once our ecosystems become resilient, of course, we are going to have better opportunities. Because remember, we started from biodiversity. How do we maintain all the species living within a different community? So in most cases, the animal, plant, or different species can be reintroduced to our ecosystem. So if we have a forest, we know that I think forests have the highest number of biodiversity, because we have both fauna and flora, or both plants and animals living within a forest of different kinds. So if we can create a favorable environment for them to grow or even to survive, then you find that here our ecosystems are going to become resilient. And then also know that most of the fishing communities depend on a healthy ecosystem. But these days, people don't want to eat fish from Lake Victoria. And I think we all know the reason why. So why don't we maintain our rivers and lakes healthy in order for us to benefit from them? Richard, you look like you have a question. Then also have the beekeepers. They need an ecosystem in balance for the well-being of insects and plants. Once we have destroyed the bees, then we are also destroying. Just come and sit here next to me. They are over networking.
No, I have an issue because like you say, right, so I was trying to find out.
No, I say people these days no longer want to eat fish from Lake Victoria because the level of pollution is so high. Okay, you sit here and you answer from here. So what are the benefits of a healthy ecosystem? I think this we don't have to explain, be it land, be it rivers, be it lakes, terrestrial or aquatic ecosystem. This is very important. Once we can realize this, because at least for human health, we know that if having our ecosystem resilient, we are resilient to climate change, reduces the risks of some diseases. The most common example is malaria, because if our mosquitoes have a very, in areas where you find that here, they are facing chances where they're being chased from where they survive from. You find that they're going to end up in our houses, and we're increasing the incidences of malaria. So we need to lower the chances of these pathogens or microorganisms reaching other species in order to protect ourselves from these changes. So how can we conserve the ecosystem using NbS strategies? We need to reintroduce important species, rehabilitate the natural habitats, and then ecological restoration of strategic or degraded ecosystems. Someone to remind us the difference between rehabilitation and restoration. David yesterday told us the difference between them. Someone to remind us rehabilitation and restoration. Or it ended up the quiz. David, can you explain to remind us the difference between rehabilitation and restoration? Because we might be thinking of rehabilitating our habitats and restoring them, yet the difference between them looks more or less the same.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. We say that when you rehabilitate, actually in most cases, you're looking at bringing back the values. But when you're restoring, they look they're kind of similar things. But basically, restoration is broader than rehabilitation. If a system is just damaged, you can go ahead and apply nature-based solutions to rehabilitate it. But then if a system has been lost and you want to bring it back, you go ahead and do restoration. I think that is basically a concept.
Thank you for that reminder. So, and we should also keep in mind that nature has evolved over the years. So managing it, it would mean that we need to look at the different components of the ecosystem. Let us not only focus on one and then ignore the others, because our whole ecosystem is going to be helpful in that. How we increasing resilience, then we maintain the ecological features like our wetlands, so that we avoid their restoration or actually potential permanent loss. There are some wetlands that have been cleared, such that if someone told you that there was a wetland there, you're going to actually tell them no. And you never know, some of you might also be living where a wetland existed before, because you didn't find it there, so you can't actually know. And then also through improved social governance, cohesion, environmental justice, and climate readiness, we need to also take measures to identify hazards. If we can access the vulnerability and risks, then, as we said, it will be easier to implement before a catastrophe occurs. And then we need to have collective action in whatever we are doing at any one time.
The next.
And then finally, we are looking at the last session, implementation of NbS. Before we go, we are not sure if the pointer will work. Okay. So here, for investing in nature-based solutions, we are interested in understanding the process, the actors involved in implementing nature-based solutions, and then we should be able to explore the different sources of funding for nature-based solutions. As we have seen, some of these are expensive. So where can we find some funding in order to help us? We looked, I think someone yesterday hinted on the implementation of nature-based solutions. And as we keep saying, most of these implementations, you're going to follow the global standard. You come from the global standard and then you localize it to your country, because what works in the US might not work in Uganda. But at least if you have a standard for your comparison, you find that it is going to become easier for you to look at, because it is important that we have a common language or a shared language for all the stakeholders, so that we have innovative partnerships. And then apart from that, it is a user guide and a self-assessment tool. So if you can look at this, then it is going to also be important. And then you also find that here, most on the donors and financiers, as they're assessing your, let's say, your project or your concept, of course, they are going to consider what are you using, such that we look at if we are minimizing the risks in order to provide increased security. Of course, all the players who we are calling the user groups, the public and then the private sector, should also engage with the governance structure, because then if we are looking at something common, then we can use it as a benchmark to mainstream the NbS that we are interested in. Once we have implemented our NbS based on a global standard, then of course it has the potential to address the societal challenges that we are interested in. So what are some of the good practices in the implementation of NbS in Uganda? This I got from a report that Emily developed after doing some one-on-one with the stakeholders and the users of where NbS is already taking place within the different communities. You need to conduct a community needs assessment to understand and appreciate the needs and concerns of the community. If you want to start a project in a given community, you ask yourself, does your community really need this? If it is not needed, then think again or look to a community which is going to actually need it. And then you also need to do a structured stakeholder engagement for joint planning, implementation, and monitoring. Don't use only one stakeholder, yet you will need more than one in order for you to achieve what you're actually interested in. You should also have an investment plan. Don't invest and then draw the plan later, because it might be hard for you to go back to the drawing board to come up with the correct idea. And then you should anchor your implementation within community-based natural resource users groups. The good thing these days is that most of the communities have different groups. The most common are women groups. Some of them are savings, some of them are monomukabi, different ideas depending on what they are interested in. So this can be your entry point within the communities. As you start, engage the different stakeholders. Look at the people who are actually using the resources. When I was looking at some of the literature, one of the community in Chisoro of the Batwa people, or towards the Batwa people, you find that they have not welcomed NbS because they have their reasons. They're saying they've lost most of their rights. They've lost their land. So if you come with your ideas, some of these people are not going to accept what you're introducing, because as people before, they feel that they have been what? They've been marginalized. So study the community there, and then you find that here it is going to be helpful for you. So those are some of the different stages. So here, when we're looking at one of them, I came across this figure which is showing us that if we want to realize a nature-based solution, we have to look at what? The different actors. I'm sorry if the figure is not so clear, but at least we have an idea. We have our present solution, then a nature-based solution, and then the social economic impact. And then if you look just here at the corner, as summary, we have the business as usual. I'm planting my trees. Of course, I'm going to get my money. This is what an example of business as usual. But if I look at an NbS scenario, the projection, you can see that it is much higher because of the triple benefits that are usually associated with them. So as we try to think about our NbS ideas, if you can present such an economic scenario to a funder, you find that it is going to be very easy for you to get the funding, because they see where you're coming from and where you're going. Because sometimes writing a project that is going to earn you money is convincing the funder that this is possible. Even when you write it well, but they're not seeing any benefits, however good it is, you find that usually they're going to leave it at their desk because it is not speaking to them. What are some of these elements of the implementation process? These are not going to differ so much from the good practices of an NbS implementation in Uganda. Of course, you have to formalize a collaboration. You're coming from Kampala, you're going to a community, let's say in Masaka. You don't know the people in Masaka, you don't know the players there, you don't know the user groups there, but you have your idea. We need to form a formal collaboration, because once you start with this collaboration, sometimes it is important, you just pass through the communities. You can, without even, you can just introduce yourself to the local chairperson, and then you try to befriend the people within these communities. Such a walk through an area is going to give you ideas on what actually the people like doing, the problems they are having, and what they think they can also do better. So from those ideas, you can already think of where you're coming from. So once you have formalized your collaboration, then you're going to co-create your knowledge. And within this co-creation, you also have the sub-elements. You analyze the NbS and then its options and benefits. You identify the key policies and actors, and then you look at the exploration of the financial options. Once you have looked at this, then you're going to adapt it to the local context. It should be part of a wider planning. That way you're sure you're not colliding actually with the policy and governance of the district, let's say, where you are going, and actually the local council where the actual implementation will be done, and then at the same time the user groups. So those are the different stakeholders that we are going to have within such a setting. So this collaboration at the start, we want to have an idea, which knowledge do the people advance knowledge, want to find out what is needed. Social inclusion, we need to look at who is going to be involved in the first steps, problem formulation, selection of the NbS, and then the perceived benefits and concerns. That way, during this collaboration, you will start up the process of formalizing and setting up a space which is going to help you to initiate the process. That way the people would also own the process that you are actually looking at. The other one would be the co-creation of knowledge. I request that I sit here, since the technology here within this co-creation of knowledge, remember we started at the part of the collaboration. So you find that here, you've done all that. The first 3 steps, you analyzed, you identified, and then you explore. Then you look at the outcomes, meaning that from these outcomes, you can share an understanding, and from the knowledge you have obtained, you're sure that you can use during the implementation. Because once these are in agreement, then it becomes very easy for you. So how can you promote investment in NbS? Of course, you can look at through rules, the mandatory requirements, through rules or regulations for development. So most of the people have to comply with the requirements. You look at the economic instruments. Are there any incentives that are going to be given to the developers? Are there any taxes or fees which have to be paid by the entities? Because you find that in some cases, you might need to request for to pay lower taxes. It is important that you also define the roles and responsibilities during the process of implementation. So the roles for the different players are also going to be identified. The local authorities, the private sector, and then the NGOs. Each of these have a role to play. Sorry, I'm talking a little faster. We are a bit behind time. So all these are going to help us within these different processes. We've looked at how LC, you can go to an LC to do something, and an LC person can frustrate you. Because sometimes they say that Kampala people have a lot of heirs around them. So when you reach these communities, make sure that from the start, you can identify what the role that they're going to play. And then everything is going to be smooth sailing. So how are these nature-based projects being funded? So you need to finance the different components of the project. You're planning, you're implementing before you get the benefits. Because as we saw, some of them are short-term. The effect or the impact of your NbS will be felt after a long term. So what are you going to do in between the short term if you're not seeing any difference? Those are some of the different stages that we are looking at. So the sources of funding and finance, it could be an urban NbS, where we expect a municipality or KCCA to give us the money if it is possible. We could also reach out to the government through the ministries, the different offices. These days we have parish model. If you find that it can also help, reach out to everyone, even within these different city councils or the different subdivisions. They also have their budgets. You could also use that as an entry point. And the question would be, what is the difference between funding and financing? Anyone to tell us? Funding and financing. Without reading what is on the slide. So anyway, for financing, we want to obtain capital for purchase or for a purchase or an enterprise. It could be a loan, a cooperative, and then so forth. While funding, money is going to be provided to you. It could be a grant, it could be a donation. So you find that you can either fund or you can get a fund or you can get a grant to help you actually pay for the implementation of your NbS project. If you feel that the loan is if you feel that maybe you looked at your investment plan and your assessment is showing that you're going to get your money very fast, you can go for a loan. But in most cases, the grants are usually the most. So if we look at the national and subnational sources, I think we all know where we can get the money. It could be a public source, it could be a private investor, and then sometimes community contributions. People who are interested in the well-being of their communities sometimes can give you money to help implement what you're interested in, as long as they can actually see where it is coming from. So the international sources, it could be international financing institutions. We have climate finance institutions, multinational companies, and then philanthropic foundations. Some people can give small grants. So the small grants that you can add them together, and these are going to help you to finance your NbS project. So these are more or less a repetition. If you're not using a grant, you can use a loan to help you realize your project that you have set up to do at the start of your project. So that is what I prepared for you today regarding the funding of NbS projects. Thank you for your attention. I'll answer only 2 questions.
Now, ask one question. The question is,
that most of these other activities with relationship to exploration activities, then where we are using NbS, once the financing has stopped, that is the end of the whole process. So, is there a possibility how we can use to ensure that there is that sustainability within the community themselves?
The answer to the last question is yes. The first question, I'm sorry, I didn't get it well. If you don't mind, repeat it for me. Our continuity of a project is actually, these days, what we refer to as sustainability of the project. Once you have started your project, and then let's say the grant money is exhausted, can we? That is what we are saying. If this money is exhausted or the funding has stopped, in most cases, we always also stop there because maybe what we wanted has also ended. But when we're looking at some of these implementations, you find that it should be ongoing. By the time the grant has ended, you should have put in place systems to ensure its continuity. And that is why it is important for you to develop a good relationship with the community. And that is why how you start the project is going to actually be very key in your continuity or in the after of the project. Once the start of the project has not involved the local communities, you have to ensure that the people you're working with have a sense of belonging. And once you're doing this and they can see that they can benefit from it, you find that even without any extra money, the systems have already been put in place where the money is going to continue from. That is where we usually fail.
Just want to add my voice in regards to the planning approach. These initiatives are either developed as projects, so they end very fast because probably have one financer, or when you develop them as a program initiative, you bring on board many other actors who are different objectives to the same. So that's where you have issues to do. And at the end of the project, you must have an exit strategy. But a program continues all the way through. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because it is also important to note, stopping of funding doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. Because sometimes you're only contributing to how the problem is going to be handled. So if you prepare it well, you find that you can still continue. Like, let's say if we look at the example of the people who are using bees to keep away the wild animals. You can't convince us that once the funding has stopped, you're going to remove your hives. Because the moment you remove the hives, I'm sure the wild animals are going to be at your step. Let's plan well our NbS projects, and then we are sure we won't need extra funding because we shall have put systems in place to ensure continuity. The most interesting part of the sessions is here upon us. So as we did yesterday, only write your number and you have 15 minutes. Maybe something I should say today, make sure you read the instructions. You're not failing the objective because you don't have the knowledge. It is, I think you're reading the question halfway. And then you circle it. Make sure only one, you circle, or you choose only once. We don't want negatives.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't close your eyes and choose.
who is known to many of you, because he has interacted with a number of you on the topic that is so interesting and I'm passionate about. That is the topic around governance. Much as we are talking of nature-based solution, Uganda is going to update its NDC, what we are calling NDC 3.0. We need to see how issues relating to NbS are factored in. But apart from having these issues integrated in planning, how do we ensure that we continue to see or implement what we plan? Uganda is able to be a very good planning country. Very good that neighbors come and even just copy and paste our plan. And for them, because they perfect the implementation of our plan, they excel. We have a good neighbor who has been known for that. You fix your good national development plan, then for them, they implement it to the core. And the things move. So we have now the knowledge about nature-based solution. But today, if you go back to your institution, how will you use this knowledge? If even in your institutional setup, you can't make a preposition, or there are barriers which are limiting you, or you are not aware of the existing leverages you can use to integrate NbS. So we are privileged that today we are going to be taken through what, the how, what should be done as far as issues of nature-based solutions should be, must be rhyming with our governance architect. So without wasting time, join me in welcoming Dr. Patrick Yakata.
Much time do I have? The whole day. Good afternoon. My name is Patrick, as Robert mentioned. I've been coming in just to see how active you are during the first modules. And I think, Robert, you have a very good team. They have been very active, especially when doing the quizzes. But unfortunately, civil society members like to do quizzes. So, the good news is that the quiz here will be oral. When I finish, I will interview each individual to see the level of understanding. Is that fair? Why? I thought that's because civil society people are known for expressing themselves. If we limit you to only options, we are really not getting the best out of it. So the quiz will be oral. Action, that's the best. Okay. But let's see how it goes around. I like to start from the knowledge point of view for a development. What I think might be useful. I need to move forward. I will start with this row, column. What has been very fascinating to you, this aspect of NbS? What is it that you will remember even because you're out of the sleep? Just one of this. You can offer the one who puts up the hand first will be the one, okay? Yeah.
I think for me, it is the fact that
replanting trees and doing whatever activity is not nature-based, not a nature-based solution. But the fact that it should be an initiative towards solving a societal problem and benefiting the people that are living there. So if you just plant trees, for the sake of it, it's not nature-based.
Okay, can you please help me? Another person here, okay, 3, then to help me to any volunteers? This, are you the one intending this? Okay. You'll take it home.
For me, I have discovered this academy that it's just an only thing. Only that you not understanding how it works.
Okay.
You open class, we believe that actually it works. Yeah, it's only now.
Okay, then the other, bro. Any volunteers? Once you're looking at the side, you don't have anything that you are going to take home.
I think that we can address societal challenges and be able to benefit people while at the same time conserving or protecting the ecosystem. And yeah, so we can achieve environmental protection while at the same time benefiting people.
Okay, Christine and the team, I see people have appreciated what the NbS is. You can say, is it a double win or triple win? Let's see. I have just this slide to just get back to what you've been going through. I know you covered most of this, but I thought these 3 grades would also help us as we move into what I was providing for. I mentioned here that NbS involves working with and enhancing nature to help us address societal challenges. I think there is a reason as to why the authors talk about you're working with, but you also are enhancing nature. So that has implications on rights of nature also. We do not want to use NbS to in any way limit the rights of nature system. Also, you want to work with it in order to help address societal challenges. So I thought we should mention this ad enough as we get into the laws to know why we have that. Then another important aspect to remember, it's grounded in this philosophy that a healthy natural ecosystem or ecosystems will give you several services on which human beings depend. Now that second bullet, because we are not able to see, okay, maybe I stand here. If I stand here, then I will look like a Christian preaching, because they usually want to see on the corners. That second bullet is crucial for us if you want to promote NbS, because those who critique NbS, as we shall see, it do indicate that it might be difficult to be balanced. Okay? Sometimes we want to, like many of you have talked about well-being, which is very important. But as you push to improve well-being using NbS, you could do it while disadvantaging nature success. Okay? So as you pursue using nature to improve human well-being, be aware that nature could also be affected by that. So, but also acknowledging that our well-being depends significantly on natural resources, on natural ecosystems. It's something that, of course, is can be argued. But if you do not believe in it, then it becomes very difficult to apply NbS. If you don't believe that our human well-being or our well-being is dependent on the health of the natural ecosystems, it's going to be very difficult to apply NbS. So as you do your advocacy, I think the starting point is to demonstrate that our well-being is very much dependent on natural systems. Now, once you agree on that, then you start working towards using nature to address the needs of human beings. From your explanation, I think most of you were looking at NbS as a double win, but quite often we now say it's a triple win. Provides simultaneously economic, social, and environmental benefits. Of course, the reason as to why many of you looked at it as a double win, you combine economic and social also. Because once you talk about well-being, it covers both economic and social aspects. But it's important moving forward to be looking at the way we look at sustainable development that has three facets: environment, society, and economy. Similarly, NbS looks at all these three. But the first two can be covered under well-being, which many of you have talked about. So if you claim that you are applying NbS, then we have to see all those three in your actions. Is it improving on, is it contributing to societal benefits? Is it contributing to economic benefits? Is it contributing to environmental benefits? I think the other day, someone, lack of the right word, quote unquote, complained that there's too much climate in this NbS. Is that true? Is it a true reflection of the question? I found you people responding to it. Now, in some literature, you will find when they talk of the triple win, they replace environmental benefits with the climate mitigation and adaptation. And it's obvious that, as Christine mentioned, when you address climate, you are addressing most of the problems, because it seems to be our biggest environmental challenge in our generation. So sometimes we say it's a triple win that involves socio-economic and then climate. So that shouldn't in any way, but environmental benefits encompasses most of it. So I thought this slide would be important for us as we get into what is it that we have in our laws as an opportunity for us to build on if we are doing any advocacy for NbS. I'm very certain that we all have access to this act, the Climate Change Act, or at least you have phones that can download it. If you go to, I'll not be very specific. I put the sections there for those who, because I know Anna is here and Daphne is here, they like to know where in the law do I go. And I think those of you who are involved in advocacy, it's important to know exactly where to go within the law. So if you go to section 8, the Climate Change Act of 2021, it has a chapter in now. I didn't put the chapter here. The lawyers prefer using the chapters. It provides for district climate change action plans. Okay, and the expectation is that this plan will give us the strategies, the policies, and actions for adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Okay, that's a great opportunity for us to integrate NbS. The question, as we shall see, do our districts have these climate change action plans? That's something to think about. Similarly, if you go to section 9 of the Act, it provides for participation in climate change mechanisms. The people at CCD, the Climate Change Department, they like to use climate change mechanisms. Basically, the details are things to do with emission trading, the emission trading mechanism, non-market approaches. To put it to a lay person, trading in carbon, for instance, is considered as part of climate change mechanisms. That's a great opportunity for us to participate in PES schemes that involve carbon credit trading, which I think Christine and the team have covered as an NbS. So a great opportunity for us as provided for by the Act. In the event that you feel I'm slow, I can enhance my speed. In case I'm very fast, you can also feel free to ask for that. The National Environment Act 2019, which also has a chapter which I've chosen not to use here,
if you go to section 5, it has several principles of environmental management. As people in this sector, in this arena, I encourage you to spend some time to review those principles. Principles are very important because they are the ones that are applied even the lawyers who are here. When judgments are being made, they demonstrate the spirit of the law. So if you look at those principles, and then we're supposed to continue, as we shall see, monitoring them and implementing them and making sure that we follow them as we use the environment or as we manage the environment. And these are just 3 examples of what I consider to be useful principles that could be applied in NbS. For example, the principle of maintaining a stable functioning relations between the living and the non-living parts of the environment. If you look at that principle, NbS could be a pathway through which you can achieve that. Restoring or lost or damaged ecosystems. We've been doing a lot of, we've covered a lot on restoration as activity or practice. Requiring, I'll just explain this, requiring the application of the mitigation hierarchy principle. This is, to me, this is one of the principles that all actors within the ENR subsector now need to be fully, they need to understand it and also promote its application. What it requires us to do is, in the event that there is a development, is an activity that would affect the environment negatively in an adverse way, we expect whoever is doing it to first avoid. So the first step should be to avoid. If you can't avoid, or at least minimize the impact. If you can't minimize, restore. Okay? And if you can't do all that, at least have an offset. What this means is that if there's an idea to construct a road, for instance, to go through a wetland, the first way of avoiding the impact of that road in a wetland is to design a road that avoids the wetland. So demonstrate to us that you have really tried to avoid going through the wetland. If you fail still, try to minimize the impacts. If you're going to take away maybe 10 hectares of the wetland or forest, please take away 5. And then the area that has been degraded through the construction, are you able to restore it? If all that fails and we still have something that we are losing, then we need an offset. And an offset is the compensation of what we've lost. And we argue that it should be a net gain offset, meaning we shouldn't have an offset where we're not gaining in terms of the biodiversity metrics that have been considered. This is a great opportunity for NbS in these projects that result into loss of we have to. But you know how you have the
I am learning this thing.
Just moved.
Yes.
Okay. I hope you have not moved many slides. Thank you. But you need to take back your seat because when I requested any but in case it's not okay.
Okay.
So you have to remain a participant.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to be an assistant. Okay. Still, the Act, the NEA, section 57, it provides for restoration, reforestation, and afforestation of those hilly and mountainous areas, and it requires the lead agencies like our local governments to implement this. And this to me is a great opportunity to implement NbS, because we learned that you can do restoration, you can do afforestation, as long as, of course, you follow the other 3 aspects of ensuring that you are addressing the social, economic, but also the environmental benefits. And we know that reforestation and afforestation is useful for climate change mitigation. If you go to section 54, provides for the management of wetlands, particularly subsection 8C, which talks about restoration and enhancement of protected wetlands. So if you look at the spirit of that provision, we expect when you're doing restoration, we expect you wetlands to contribute towards biodiversity conservation, to contribute towards disaster risk reduction, livelihoods and climate change. And if you look at all these are benefits that we expect from NbS. So that can be an entry point for you if you want to apply NbS, because we have a provision in the law that already acknowledges the importance of being a restoration, especially of those protected wetlands. And I hope we are aware that we have almost 5,000, I think, wetlands now that have been gazetted. Okay, so those are already protected. We are not only referring to the Ramsar sites. Okay, so all these wetlands that have been gazetted potentially apply this provision. Then if again section 60 of the NIA, it provides for conservation of biological resources in situ. I don't know whether Christine you talk about in situ conservation. Who has never studied ecology? You'll bear with us. Our job is to teach, and usually teachers like to ask questions. Yet you are very big people. See ED, director programs, program officer. You have many titles. Anyone who has not studied ecology before, apart from, but even the lawyers, biology is compulsory. You're forcing her to look at that. In situ conservation means you're conserving it in its natural state. Okay. For instance, if you have a national park, a forest reserve, keeping those species in their natural setting. But if you pick them out, so if you pick them out, then that will be in situ. Okay. So in their natural setting, that will be in situ conservation. Those of you who like variegated maize, you make maize with different colors. We are running out of those varieties because nobody is conserving them in situ. You have them in your garden. You need to keep them jealously. So the measures that they provide, framers provided for in situ conservation, ensure that there is no net loss of biological diversity, rehabilitate and restore, and all these I can see, as you've seen, you could apply NbS to implement them. Okay. Then section 67 provides for PES. I think the team talked about a lot in payment for ecosystem services. So the Environmental Act talks about providing payments for those services. And just to remind us what PES is, I think they define what PES is if you look at your slides. But by and large, what we expect in PES is that you are certain that a certain ecosystem service is going to be provided by the person who produces it or by the provider, because this person is involved in implements certain management land practices, okay, and there's a person who is going to enjoy them, okay, and all for those services. So PES, as we know, is a nature-based solution that we can use either to minimize climate change, but can also help us lose control or reduce loss of biodiversity, and also improve the well-being of local communities. If you look at most of the people, the companies, organizations involved in carbon credits, in bio credits, they all have requirements. If you look at their safety standards, they have requirements of ensuring that the well-being of the local communities is also taken care of. All these standards that we have. So great opportunity to have apply NbS if you want. Similarly, section 130 of the NIA provides for environmental restoration orders. I don't know in where you come from, your jurisdiction or districts, whether you've seen NEMA issuing out these restoration orders. And I see this a great opportunity for NEMA here. So if you're giving out if the ED is issuing out these restoration orders, there's a possibility to require that the restoration order follows NbS, because we know NbS, you will be the triple, you can achieve the triple. Okay, so next time you see a restoration order, check whether NbS is reflected, because it's a great opportunity for one to achieve it. Similarly, in section 8 of the NIA, the authority, this is stated verbatim, we expect the NEMA, in collaboration with different lead agencies, to issue guidelines and the prescribed measures, as we shall see whether this is already in or not yet, for the sustainable use of hilly and mountainous areas. So we expect these guidelines, if NEMA, together with lead agencies, those that are in charge of these hilly and mountainous areas, whether these guidelines have principles of NbS reflected in them. Then subsection 2 of the same section states several measures that we expect these guidelines to include. If you look at those measures, whether it's the appropriate land use practices, control of soil erosion, disaster preparedness, all these, if you look at them, can be implemented using NbS. So you can easily achieve these measures by considering NbS. Okay, as still in the Act, section 53, it provides for protection of our riverbanks, our lake shores, the natural beaches, because we're aware that this can help us in ensuring that we have water, but also it can help us reduce risks associated with the mismanagement of these shores and beaches and riverbanks. So that's a bit of the NIA. The other act that you could want to look at is the National Forest and Replanting Act. We all know that it provides for reserves, both central and local forest reserves. And in there, when you look at the purpose, the framers, what they thought these reserves could do apart from the other aspects, it also includes tourism. The reason as why we have these local forest reserves and central forest reserves, apart from the other conservation purposes, tourism is also as the purpose, or the facet of the purpose. This is an opportunity to promote ecotourism as a nature-based solution. So if we have the same from local forest reserves, and one of the purposes is tourism, and we know ecotourism can be practiced and used to better manage these reserves. That's a great opportunity for those involved in the management of these reserves. And just to be certain on what ecotourism is, I don't know if we covered it, the team covered it. The Association or the Society for Ecotourism, they define it as the responsible travel. Keyword there, responsible. Natural areas that conserves the environment, natural area or areas that conserve the environment, sustains the well-being of local people, and also involves interpretation and education. You can see in its true sense, if you look at the interpretation of ecotourism, it almost gives us the expected benefits of it. So one can consider that. Again, the National Forest and Replanting Act of 2003 gives the minister powers to formulate regulations that can support the trade in carbon sequestration credits. And as we discussed the gaps, we shall see whether the regulations that CCD is developing, where CCD is Climate Change Department, whether they are in tandem with what the Forestry Act provides in relation to forests. So these can help us in implementing forest carbon credits, which is an opportunity to apply in NbS. This that I also considered, it looks far-fetched, but I think it's something that could also consider section 87 subsection B2, which gives court powers to convict in a personal conviction if you've been involved in any forest crime. One of the penalties is to restore the land its original state. I found this very revolutionary. I'm still waiting for a judge, any issue officer who would say, restore it to its original state. It means even your grandchildren will still be, because imagine to restore Vida or Dongo. But my interest was judges can still, as they make their judgment, they can provide guidance on what kind of restoration, or we can have regulations that will help the judge to consider NbS as they make these decisions. Section 37 provides for the minister, together with the lead agencies, to make an inventory of all forests in Uganda in order to identify those areas that need afforestation and reforestation. Again, this is probably something that we are not doing, as we shall see the gaps. Regular forest inventories. For instance, today, if you had, imagining like now we have the big loan that the World Bank and the grant, where we expected to do restoration. I usually ask my colleagues who are involved in it, where are you going to restore? Because you've not done regular inventories to see which landscapes we are going to do the restoration. Because the Act requires us to do that regular restoration, that regular inventory, to identify those areas. So that's another area that one would do consider. Similarly, those of us who are interested in NbS, where are you going to implement all these good ideas that you learned days? Opportunities. So those are the opportunity, the other opportunities that we have in the Forestry Act. The Wildlife Act also has some opportunities for 2019. And one of the, if you look at the facets of the purpose of the Wildlife Act, there is an aspect of enhancement of economic and social benefits from wildlife management. So we already have an entry point if you're near a wildlife conservation area. Part of the purpose of why we have those wildlife conservation areas is to increase economic and social benefits, especially for the local communities through tourism. Then it can also contribute to economic development, income for local people. All these are considered as benefits of having these national, these wildlife conservation areas. And one of the things that is required is that we can also do nature-based tourism in these places. Okay? And it could be ecotourism, it could be adventure tourism, as long as if we are promoting these different forms of nature-based tourism, the way that acknowledges the expected benefits of nature-based tourism. Remember the triple win. Next. The Wildlife Act also recognizes the historical rights of communities. So in the event that you want to engage the responsible body, which is the Uganda Wildlife Authority, to apply NbS, we have provisions that demonstrate the spirit of improving the well-being of the communities, okay, that live around these protected areas, especially things like historical rights. Those of you who come from Mount Elgon, I think you still have a bit of accessing the shoots, the bamboo shoots. For me, we, at least I'm told, we used to enjoy buffalo meat because we are not far from action and an elephant meat. Is that a historical right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, the people in Mount Elgon, for them, I think they were a bit fair. They only take in plants, not wildlife. They're not the animals. When your historical right is of animals, I haven't seen a community that is being allowed to access meat. Maybe they want to be allowed. Okay, then the authority is expected to provide guidelines for access, sustainable access of communities and neighboring conservation areas. I talked about that a little bit. I just wanted to again emphasize this bit of section 84, which talks about compensation. So that's an opportunity. We do not want to have tourism, we don't want to have protected area, which are all forms of NbS, where when people are injured or killed, they are not compensated. So the Act has provisions for compensating those that have been affected. It also has provision for issuing out of regulations to enable us to have efficient management of the revenue and benefit sharing. All these are, in my opinion, I think, opportunities that one could harness if you want to promote NbS around the areas we call wildlife conservation areas or protected areas for wildlife. I think this should be the last part. The Physical Planning Act of 2010 provides for every DLG to have a physical planning committee. And these have been given responsibilities, including ensuring that we have urban forest space, open spaces, parks, green belts. So if you are into use of green belts or parks in cities or in urban areas, as an NbS practice, this is something that one will go through. The question is, as we shall see, are we doing this? What could be the gaps? What could be the barriers? Next. So, reading through these laws, I observed the following, which I think moving forward, we may have to also continue to have these discussions in your respective jurisdictions. Most of the DLGs have not prepared the district climate change action plans, where we would expect the NbS strategies to be integrated. If you look around, maybe Robert, you tell us how many districts have prepared climate change action plans as required by the law. Okay, I think there are only 2 and they were financed by Iceland. Okay, so we are still, where Iceland is a very small country with only 330,000 people. 330,000, and this has been their number since 2000 village. So if only 2 districts have these action plans, the question is, what could be the reason? And this is the only opportunity we have to integrate NbS that is targeting addressing climate change mitigation and adaptation, which you have learned in 3 days. Then there are no regulations to foster participation in climate change mechanisms. Remember, we mentioned that the Climate Change Act does talk about enhancing participation of the population of the community in these mechanisms, trading ecosystems, trading carbon credits. But regulations that which would look at to see whether they are fair or they foster participation are still in the process. So this is an opportunity for us to continue engaging CCD. I don't know how far this process is now, but the question would be, did you participate in the process of preparing these regulations? And did you think about considering NbS these regulations? If you look at the principles which we talked about in the management environment, which are the National Environment Act, most of them, in my opinion, are not effectively implemented by NEMA. They are of optimum sustainable income. Anyone who does not know how to operationalize it, the principle of optimum sustainable yield, it's in among the principles of environmental management in the Act. Okay. So the question is, how do we ensure that NEMA and the lead agencies implement these principles? So that's a big gap. Benefit sharing mechanisms for wetlands restored by the community. We've seen many, while the Act and even the regulations which actually obsolete now because the new Act was passed, they encourage us to restore degraded areas as communities. But how do we share the benefits? If finally the wetland is restored to its original state and the community has been involved. Remember we said in the NbS, there has to be, we have to also look at the benefits of well-being. So without clear benefit sharing mechanisms for ecosystems that have been restored, that's going to remain the challenge for us to implement NbS. Similarly, guidelines for community involvement, wetland restoration, are not available. So if you wanted, if you want to restore BG, what do you use to guide you in the process of restoration? We still go to the LOC1 chairperson. Is he or she the most legitimate person to engage or to involve in this restoration process? Okay, similarly, we don't have guidelines for conservation of biological resources in situ. The reason as to why I asked whether maybe the very young people have not seen variegated maize, maize with different colors. Anyone who has not seen, of course, Augusta, you have seen them. So. But one way through which we could conserve those varieties would be through in situ conservation, growing, establishing farms that have where we use seed. So we don't use them. But there are no guidelines for in situ conservation. So there are no regulations and guidelines for pests, especially for biocredits and water credits. I know some few organizations like WWF are attempting to promote pests on water and down in southwestern Imbarara, the neighboring districts. I'm not very certain what is guiding their intervention legally. Okay. And then I know some organizations like EcoTrust are trying to implement projects where they will have biocredits. Again, there are no guidelines, although the Act does provide for trading these credits, bio and water credits. But without regulations, without guidelines, it means there's a possibility that they will not benefit the local community as always wish under the NbS. Similarly, there are no guidelines for restoration of different natural ecosystems. And talked about that. If you look at the CFM guidelines, the collaborative forest management guidelines, they do not have specific provisions for ecotourism for those participating communities. Some of you come from CFM groups. We have some people here, or at least you have interacted with individuals that in CFM groups. They're not, apart from maybe Budongo, not very sure actually whether that CFM group has the right to because it is a developer. It is an investor, sorry, not an investor who is who claims that is working with the community to promote ecotourism. But it would be nice to see a CFM group who's in their plan and in the agreement they've signed with the NFA, indicated that for them their job is to do ecotourism. So the guidelines don't have adequate coverage in that. Benefit sharing mechanisms again between the NFA and the local communities. Those of you who come, I think, from Maramagambo and Ichuya, there's a bit of ecotourism in those reserves. But how are the benefits shared between the NFA and the local communities around there? So it means the other aspect of NbS is missed out. There is ecotourism, but it's not benefiting directly the communities. Similarly, when you look at the draft regulations on carbon mechanisms, Robert, I will seek your attention on this one. They are not so explicit, prioritizing the well-being of local communities. If you look at those regulations, and we can understand probably the process that they went through very there, NbS probably wasn't very popular, or at least there were no people that were planning support for the well-being of local communities. Considering carbon from Bugoma, whichever reserve or planted trees, what the regulations indicated in relation to addressing the plight of the local communities. Then in the Wildlife Act does provide possible compensation, as I mentioned, but we don't have any regulations and guidelines to operationalize this provision. People are still affected by elephants in Moya, killed baboons or chimpanzees, take people's children, and the Uganda Wildlife Authority still has to look around. Of course, we have the schedule of the animals that have been considered for compensation, but if you don't have regulations, you also don't have guidelines that are going to help you in operationalizing them. People will find protected areas, which is a measure for NbS practices, as not very useful. Similarly, when it comes to benefit sharing and revenues with the local communities, we expected the regulations to come out by now from 2019, but the minister responsible for wildlife has not. Yet this would be an opportunity for us to harness. When you look at the Fiscal Planning Act 2010, as I mentioned, it provides for green belts when we are preparing our development plans. But again, no regulations to guide this particular aspect. We know that Uganda is as the ministry claims that the whole of Uganda is a planning area. But if you plan and you don't give us the tools that you're supposed to use to implement what you plan for. Like these new cities, they have green belts, they show. MEMA has not issued out guidelines and measures for the sustainable use. So this is also another requirement that we have in the Act, which is provided. This becomes very difficult to implement NbS. Then, of course, the regulations on management of wetlands, riverbanks, lake shores, have not, beach and lake, have not been reviewed. They are of 2000. We have an Act of 2019. You can imagine that should be last. You can imagine having regulations which are way older than the principle law. It becomes difficult to implement, even with the good ideas. I thought this would provoke you enough to listen to you. I want to thank you for your kind attention. Now, entertaining questions, comments, disagreements.
Thank you, Patrick, for the elaborate presentation you have made. I have two issues. One, in your presentation, even if you have alluded to it, you have not strongly come out to point the fact that tree planting is in itself a nature-based solution approach. The example was provided by Miriam. Though you did provide a little bit of explanation around the inventories, tree planting, but you did not come out strongly to express the fact that the tree planting is a nature-based solution, given that people are using it in the control to address societal challenges in Rwenzori, in Buduta, in Bulambuli. We really consider it as a nature-based solution. I would like to be guided. Secondly, you made mention of the lack of or the inability of community forest management, CFMs, collaborative forest management, and their involvement in ecotourism. Surely, these are collaborative forest management approaches were meant for communities. It is not an error or a mistake or an omission in design, but they were meant for a particular set of category of people who are mainly communities. And therefore, investing in tourism would be a big asset. Whereas I embrace the idea that they should look at ecotourism as an investment, as a nature-based solution. The design and approach of these people are actually limiting. We need some sort of capacity building for them to be able to undertake that as a nature-based solution. Again, I would like to be guided. Thank you.
I take two more. Yes, thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. I want to take it on from the physical planning perspective.
now that we are talking about secondary cities. Of course, as plan for secondary cities, there is new land being acquired because the original size of the cities were not giving that other picture of what the city should look like. So we are trying to accelerate the plan. But this land is basically for either investment in business parks, industrial parks, and all that. So the aspects of NbS are going to be considered. And they are very, they are usually centered around the environmentalists, but the physical plans don't have those things. Like, for example, if you know about physical planning, cities that have physical plans, it's only, I think, Arua, Aras, Pala, and Farof doesn't have. And the exercise is very expensive, but that's the reason why they don't have. So how do we really realize some of these? If only districts for so long they have not been having this problem. Not green. In fact, I'm talking about green physical development plans. About that cater to the buffer, the land and all that. Yeah, so I think we as environmentalists we also need to see how best do we bring our voices to this spaces where planning takes place. Lastly, I want to like using examples. The Busega PG Expressway is likely built or constructed about 17 kilometers of the 26 kilometers. Was basically feeding the wetland. I think there are also the voices of civil society that environmentalists were not heard. And that's the reason why I think there are more road safety campaigns and awareness exercises than on this NbS, promotion of the NbS. So how best do we really generate voices on the ongoing developments? Yes, at the moment, thank you.
I'll leave them and try to answer some.
I'm just wondering if Uganda has physical planners. They're there. And what do they do?
They plan.
I mean.
You are protected. Raise your question. Oh, but don't shouldn't. No, that's
because it's when you explain here and we are seeing the barriers, but we find that when you look around in Uganda, some of us are traveling in these parts of Uganda. There's no physical plan. Maybe at that age, the time when I took to understand it's the physical, because anybody, as long as you buy your land, you have the rights to do anything. Yeah, you can block some other person who has been built behind, we block the house. You don't have to say this part for the road. And I mean, there's some problem there. So I wonder if you, the land ones, especially at the level of university, you have PhD, masters, if they can help also to raise their voices to join the civil society, bring out issues of planning, so that we can follow the NbS. And it can be linked to the international global, because in the first day we were seeing how NbS actions can be linked to the global setting of regulations and things like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. My concern is one of I was looking at you, like looking at the NbS application, especially in mining areas. Like for instance, I borrow this from the experience of my life in where I come from. We find that Okay. You can come, okay. Like from where I come from, a big district, we are.
It's gold in that.
Yes. And recently, you find that there was over 50 kilometers where I was covered by gold. And when the community realized that they went for mining, it was really massive, which it also caused environmental degradation due to the mining. But you find that we have this act in place, like the NFT Act, we have in this place. And also at the district level, you find that we have an office which is in charge of that. But still, they cannot tell the people what are the NbS applications, because even the community, there was one of the CBOs who came out and said that, please, can we have like a partial way of working with the maybe with the ministry, especially the ministry in charge, Ministry of Energy and Rural Development, to have a way how they can solve this problem, which is caused by mining. But you find that also the government cannot come in. But the other way around, but they just pour the security take over the land, and they don't do anything to protect the environment, which is also another big challenge. I don't know how we can also address that in this, or in regards to the NbS Act. Then another thing also, now like when you talk of compensation, just this year in March, you find that there was a lot of complaint from the community around Kidepo, Kitgu, and also Karega. Then also that due to the animals, the wild animals left their reserve area, then they came into the community. They chased away the community that the community could not even do any farming. People left their land and there was no compensation up to date. People are living in borrowed land of relatives. So now, when we have the act like this, like for instance, the Wildlife Act of 2019 that provides for compensation. Now, like we, the environmentalists who are speaking about NbS, about all this, how can we help such a community like that, that they can at least next year or in the coming season, they will not be crying for anger when they have left their farmland, they have left their property in such a place. That's my question. Thank you.
I will start with Augusta. There is a debate a debate that never ends. Is tree planting the same as afforestation? Afforestation means you growing trees where they have never existed also. Then the reforestation, you're growing trees where they previously used to exist and now for some reason. So I think I got lost in that. Once we had afforestation and deforestation provided for in the law, but I do agree tree planting is provided for, and that's why the tree fund was created in the act to encourage tree growing among smallholders. Unfortunately, it has never been operationalized. That's another area that we have a challenge. But tree growing or tree planting is without thinking about the other aspects of social well-being, economic well-being, might not be NbS as we want. So if you are growing the trees on your farm and you just want to make money, and like me, you want to become rich, you don't really care about the communities around, that cannot be NbS. But if in your design, you have a component of addressing social well-being, then it is close to NbS. For instance, I and Augusta, we try to give people firewood plantations. I hope Augusta is still doing it. Okay, so we could say we are addressing an issue of energy in our plantation. So I can claim that you see I'm addressing the social issue of NbS, but also I'm addressing the issue of poverty because I'm hiring people from the community to get jobs in that plantation, in my tree growing. And also maintaining maybe a natural belt where I'm growing my trees. I'm not clearing the natural belt because I want to establish a plantation. So the point I'm making is that there has to be some guidelines
we have to that we went through the principles, the criteria, and the safeguards. If you're going to label something as NbS, there should be some indicators, and those indicators fall in those three facets of NbS that we talked about. So I do agree, street lighting, as long as it has the other aspects, would be an NbS. On the point, it's good you mentioned that in the design, and you should have declared that you're a historical member of those who designed our first CFM guidelines, the collaborative forest management guidelines. You want to tell these people that you're a historical member. Is in the 27, if it was the NRA, of those that prepared the guidelines that the NFA was using to determine how we are going to relate with the communities that are willing to work with them under the collaborative forest management. In my opinion, I've done a lot of work around there, and I usually say the NFA, whoever was involved, the intention was to delegate responsibilities to the community. It was not really about communities benefiting a lot from the forest. So that has to change if you're going to use NbS. And that was the purpose of having this training. That if ecotourism is a possibility of this, and the law has provided for it, then we need, where do we go? We go to the guidelines that determine or define the relationship between the agency responsible for the reserve with the community. And in my view, ecotourism, if it is included in the MOU that is signed as an acceptable activity by the community, then let's have it in the guidelines. And then we shall check, do these communities have the capacity, as you mentioned? The area of capacity, up to now, I'm still trying to build my capacity in some areas. So it means that communities have to continue building their capacity either by external actors, but in countries or in jurisdictions that value the participation of communities, the NFA would even have funds or finances, if you want, to build the capacity of these communities to do what they want. Okay. For instance, those who go and visit, I think the people go to Kisoro, they like to see the battle. And imagine if it's the battle who are taking us through that forest, showing us the animals that people go to see in wind, the gorillas. Probably they have more knowledge about their habits and how they have been relating with them. And then if all these dollars that people pay, maybe 50% was going to them, that's what we mean. Or if they give them a concession to manage a certain block of the area where business go, it would be useful. I want to demystify the fact that ecotourism you don't have to be very rich and very knowledgeable, as long as the intention is to support you. I think that's okay. And then I think Hamba talked about the business part. How do we realize, okay, well, it's not here. And also to connect to your question, we have physical planners. Are they presented here? Okay. You moved. You want to confuse the teacher. You're supposed to stay in your position. Okay. We can start from the Land Act 1998, which emphasizes that when you acquire your land, the use has to be defined by the other laws. And they state the laws, the Environment Law, the Forest Act, and also the Planning Act. The framers at that time thought that these are important laws. As you acquire your land, be aware that there are some laws that are going to govern you in the way you use the land. I think the challenge has been enforcing the provisions we have, whether it's in the Environment Act, the Forest Act, or in the Physical Planning Act. And then you asked the question that I'm going to also throw back to the audience. How do we ensure that all these new cities, these new urban areas, indeed try to operationalize what we have in the laws? For instance, those of you who are from NEMA, I will remind you of, again, the principles of environmental management. One of the principles we have there is natural capital accounting, which is any decision that we make that might affect the environment, we have to determine the cost of that decision so that we find a way of setting the loss. So the starting point should be in relation to the example you gave of the stretch. Almost 80% of the stretch is the wetland. This was partly because at that time, government thought wetlands are cheap. So we can reclaim them. But if NEMA, in future, I hope maybe now they are, but in future, if they get the heart of steel, meaning if, they should be able to say the wetland has more value and therefore, let's follow the mitigation hierarchy principle. Redesign your road, find an alternative. But because now we do not integrate the cost of the wetland in the value of the road, we do not integrate the cost of the wetland loss in the total cost of the road, it looks like it is cheap. That's why we go for wetland areas. But in the future with this act, and again, that only can stand if NEMA has a lot of skill. If they are weak, it's going to be difficult for them to enforce these principles. You need a heart of steel to challenge government, especially if you're a watchdog like NEMA. And NEMA can only get a heart of steel if civil society organizations hold them accountable. Okay, and holding them accountable means taking them to court in the event that they make a decision that is violating the principles that they expected to enforce. That would be my view on that. Okay, you mentioned about the Land Act requiring us to pull. I think I talked about that. I think the people in planning, for some reason, they are not aware that they are supposed to be big allies of those interested in environmental sustainability. I think even at the district, they are not in that department of natural resources. Are they part of it? They are another unit. And to me, that's where the problem starts. Because if the people in physical planning are not working with the environment people, with the natural resources, they're going to do their own things. Yeah, and I think that's where the problems start from. But my view is that without regulations, it becomes very difficult, even you as CSOs, to hold them accountable. Because if the regulations were available on how to operationalize some of these processes, then it would be easy to know which particular regulation have they failed to enforce, and then you hold them accountable. In the appeal, yes, what can we do with to support some of these communities? The law on minerals and mining, it was 2023, I think. It does have several provisions on environmental sustainability. So again, it's NEMA that we expect to be on top of the game. Every area where we have mining, whether it's the type of mining that you find, the small scale artisanal mining, to regulate. Because the people in energy have been very clear. Anything to do with the environment, they have referred it to the authority. So the question is, how can NEMA be on the ground in Abim? Those of you who have not been to Abim, I think now it might take 2 days since you were used to reach Abim. Okay, so it's hard to reach. Is it still hard to reach? It's no longer hard to reach. The days I used to go to Abim, there was only one truck, not a bus, a truck. So we all go on the truck and share with the livestock to get to them. So I think partly it's because of the distance, but of course, even here in Kampala, which is close to where NEMA is, I think it's about NEMA making sure that we enforce the law. But also CSOs would expect them to support these communities, to be aware of the implications of these activities. Similarly, the compensation, I think we need to ask the minister responsible for wildlife to issue these regulations for compensation. Otherwise, what we are currently doing is they bring, I don't call it compensation, they pay people based on how they feel. If you lost a child, they think of the child is not very valuable compared to another or something like that. So without the regulations, it will be difficult to operationalize this provision of compensation. I think that was it, unless there are more. Please help me with the microphone.
My question seems to be getting some bit of answers from what you explained, but I have something to ask you. You are a person who understands the law. You understand whatever it entails. Now, what lessons have you learned from the gaps you are seeing that can be used by us now to inform the NbS processes with the communities? And how do you assess the future of NbS in the absence of the regulation? Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. My concern is on the Parliamentary Act. If you look at what is expected at the district level, the Parliamentary action plans, and yet they are not there. Is there any mandatory or not doing it to be penalized, or it was just a better way of having it as a better way? Yet local governments are supposed to have it. And then if it is not there, what best can be done to ensure that us as civil society or other players can influence the government? Does it require something at the national level that the local government should have, or there's something lacking between the lead agency and the local governments?
Doctor, this question also very important for you. You know, you've emphasized the role of other stakeholders in this promotion. What is the role of the academia in promoting and passing this
Hello.
I think it's an addition to the opportunities. I think you committed to mention the Constitution for 39, and then also in addition to the new principles that you mentioned, I would implore the members here to look at the national objectives and directive principles of state policy in the Constitution, specifically objective 27 that talks about environment, and that natural resources are meant to be managed in a way that they meet current needs of the current population without depleting the environment. And it also provides for the duties of state, local government, the policies that should be in place to protect the environment, while at the same time providing for the needs of the current population. And also, I don't know. I don't know if you mentioned the national environment access to genetic resources and benefit sharing, the draft regulations.
All right. Okay. This one.
When this really alongside what you terms of quality the monitoring aspect, but also it's an aspect of modeling and simulation of an ecosystem to know the opportunity cost of putting one intervention on another. That is what we call is taken on by government. We're able to know what would it cost us to have this project, this and another. We're also able to do the projections of what would be the implications of selecting one project for another.
All right, thank you. I'll just start with that. Amber, you get another opportunity. Is it valid? And you rarely frown, so it's must be. Please give me the mic. Okay.
Thank you so much. Me, my concern is, okay, yesterday we were told that we, NbS, at the core of NbS, we are supposed to coexist with nature. But I just keep thinking, because the world is advancing and we are in the development era. So how can we really, how can that coexistence come about? And the fact that can it be replaced with technology, and maybe we can blend on that trend and move upwards? Thank you so much.
Yes, I remember sharing that areas to do with historic events and wildlife aspects. But does that culture, cultural, history alone, culture, cultural norms and values of different ecosystems, including for them, the cultural and cultural assets of communities and the time. So I think either we need besides cultural act policy and because they're the biggest contributors. Look at what they work about under kingdom. These people have actually passed the promotion of values of NTA. So how do we tap into already their knowledge, some of their innovation, so that we can replicate those on a scale.
Right. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. The lady who asked whether we can coexist. We have some Christians here. People subscribe to Christianity. No, you can't say all of you. Some people just have a name which sounds Christian, but they are really not practicing Christian. Yeah, and also we have Muslims. Yeah, so the Abrahamic religion is Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. If you look at the first books of all those that guide these three religions, they have, I was about to call them provisions. They have a lot of teachings around human beings and ensuring environmental sustainability. But also they have where they put human beings a bit above anything. Have you seen that? That you will domineer or dominate depending on what you want to use. Are you checking in the Bible?
No.
Okay. So one of the challenges we've had is that some people, when they are degrading in the environment, they keep citing the biblical verses. You see, God made us to superintend on nature. So that's why I put this slide here. That the second plate. That as long as you believe that human well-being depends on nature, then you can go for NbS. But if you think nature can be substituted, there's a whole debate on weak sustainability and strong sustainability in the resource economics, which I don't want to go into. There are those who think, don't worry, we shall get substitutes. Just use, that's what we call weak sustainability. Then there are those who believe that even with our intelligence, we shall still need nature. So NbS is governed on that. that we have limitations. There are things that nature, there are things we cannot get substitutes, and it's only nature. Okay, like for instance, you can't. Those who like to see water, you know, the people who build around lake shores. Okay, me and lake, and I think the plots outside are very expensive because when they wake up, they want to look at water. So can you get a substitute of water? You get a mirage and then it's enough. So probably not. You can't get a substitute of water. You need water, and you can't manufacture water. You have to get it from nature. So that's where it's coming from. That the things we cannot replace, and I want to believe that it's a good way of promoting NbS. But yes, traditional ecological knowledge is important, and we have several laws that acknowledge the importance of. Most people call it indigenous knowledge, local knowledge, whichever name, but really it's about valuing it. The question is whether we are enforcing these laws. Yes, I think not so much because of the bias we have, because Western knowledge dominates a lot. And again, part of the other challenge is most of this indigenous knowledge is still orally shared. You sit around the fire and they tell you stories. I think somewhere I was telling people that, of course, some of them do not believe, like Agatha, that you can play around with the NF forest in Bunyoro, but not Mugo. You understand? Because we've been told Okoma is the oldest forest in Uganda in terms of age. And they are old in terms of age. It's not big, but it's old. Okay? And it has communities that are in charge. I sound like a medicine man. There's a clan that is in charge of that forest. Of course, many of them were removed when you declared as reserve. Okay? But it's one of those forests that the people of Europe, anyone from Europe, so it's one of those forests. If you want to speak directly to the people who have been around for 900 plus years, it's in Ugom. They are in Ugom. You understand? So we have people call them myths, but there's a lot of knowledge around Ugoma forest that is held by those communities, but you will not find them in any books. That's why I was sympathizing with the people who are involved in clearing it. I really sympathize with them because even with their children or their grandchildren, they will pay. Okay, they might not pay when we're still living, but just live longer, you might see how it will respond. Okay, that's how important local knowledge is in these communities. You asked about the question on the lessons learned. Like someone mentioned earlier on, we often have relatively good laws, and the enforcement part of it is suspect. It's not good. Partly the reason is we never go ahead to develop regulations that will help in operationalizing these laws. So once an act is passed, people go to death. Yet you will need these regulations and those guidelines to help you in enforcing the set of provisions. I would say that's and of course, the other is the lawyers who are here, they don't like to say it, but it's the truth. The law is the reflection of those who wield the power, the aspirations of those who wield the power. Do you agree? That's when you agree or disagree. Because they define the politics. Laws are made by politicians in government. So especially now, if you try to stand, I don't know, some of you here stand for political position or MP, I think the minimum now you think is maybe $1 billion. Money. So if there is no history of having $1 billion in your plan, I don't know where you so that's my lesson. No regulations, and probably it is a reason as to why those regulations are not there. Those that are in charge are probably not very much interested. And what's the future of NbS without the regulation? Not everything is lost in my view. Since most of these principal laws have provision that one from home. I think we start by engaging the responsible bodies to show them that you see, we have this, we can do something using what we have. And the easiest is if the regulations can't be passed, at least let's have guidelines. Those are not very complicated to prepare. So CSOs have an opportunity to engage responsible bodies to prepare guidelines that will help in the absence of regulations. Okay. Then we also have penalties for not having the climate change action plans. The districts have not been doing this, so some CSOs, I think, through Robert is not here. They went. Districts only listen to Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. All the others, they will not listen to you. So the Ministry of Finance has come up with an arrangement where they do climate change tagging in their budget. So every entity, every, let's say, district or university, everyone has to raise a code in your budget where you have to show your climate actions. What are you budgeting for climate? So we are hoping that finally all the excuses of not having a budget will end. So we've been speaking to the people in finance, and that goes back to the question you asked: what's the role of the university or academics? Our role, we're also part of the CSOs, we are part of civil society. The only difference is that we spend most of the time teaching while you're on the ground. So we engage ministries or people who work in those institutions. So one of the things, in my opinion, that I have spoken to the people who deal with the climate change budget tagging is that without the guidelines, it's going to be difficult. Someone is going to put, I saw a certain entity, all their actions were fuel on the planet. They were wondering, this fuel, is it to go to his farm or to their farm? And their claim is that we don't know what to put. And it's simple because they don't have climate change action plans. So maybe every entity needs to have their action plans. Then you can get activities from those plans. So I think with this, this is the second year that the Ministry of Finance is insisting that every entity includes climate actions. So we are hoping that it will help. And those who don't will not be able to get budget. So you as civil society organizations, you need to, each time we get into the budget cycle, you need to have keen interest in that process. Because usually they invite you for a budget conference or something like that in your districts. So take interest in participating in those processes, and that's where you can have some of these NbS activities, even when you don't have an action plan within your district. Thank you, Daphne, for. I always see, because people talk ill of the Constitution, so sometimes I forget it because it has been amended many times. So, but I do agree that if you look at the objectives, the national objectives and directive principles, indeed, as you mentioned clearly, Objective 27. For those of you who are hearing that for the very first time, those are the commitments we have made as a country that we, the people of Uganda, we are going to respect these principles and objectives. And we, Objective 27, as you mentioned, I did talk about environmental sustainability. The question I think she raised about modeling the loss or the opportunity cost is something we call, which is also in the principles, full cost allocation principle. Full cost with a dash. That whichever decision we make, let's give the full cost. If you construct a road through a wetland or forest, or you extend a power line through a forest, and you assume that the trees have no value, you're not telling the truth. We should get the value of the trees, not just the wood, but also the environmental benefits. Attach a value, and the people who have studied that can give us the value. So that we know the full cost of that project. I can tell you, if we do that, there's a possibility that people will avoid going through forests and going through wetlands because the cost will be too high. I usually give the example, because this is very extreme, but it applies. For the men who are here, if you choose to open a subsidiary, meaning getting a second or third wife, why are the ladies just smiling? Become subsidiary. Yeah, because there's always a main office or main branch, so the others are really subsidiaries. Then you have to look at what it will cost you. If the cost is not so big and it's just about managing the anger, but if you realize that you might also die, then it's well, okay, this is not the path I want or the route I want to take also. Yeah, so that's what we expect. The way you make a decision on whether to open a subsidiary or not. So similarly, the developers will have to look at that. Unfortunately, again, this I throw it back to them. They're not applying the full cost allocation principle when making the decision whether to allow or not some of these projects. And part of the reason is we don't have our natural capital accounts yet. There are just a few accounts that we have. But once we have all the accounts ready, then NEMA will have something that they can hold over. Say, look, every hectare of the forest cleared, this is the price, this is the cost we lose. So when people look at those that are promoting it, look at the cost, most likely they will change their mind. I hope I have answered most of the questions. I know that many people are going to remember the subsidiary part of it, but that's also understandable. All right, who is responsible for managing time? I don't want to overshare. Christine, I think I've done my part. And then I have talked of the quiz. Anna is clapping quickly. You don't want the quiz? Okay. I'm assuming that we shall all remember what we've been able to share and use this to build the momentum for engaging those that are responsible for what NbS. But finally, I know Christine and Agatha have talked about it. One of the areas of criticism of NbS, which I want you to be aware of, is balancing the three. CSOs sometimes move very, very deep into addressing societal needs at the expense of the environment. Altogether. Or sometimes we go deep into economic well-being and leave social aspects. So we have to balance the moment, and one way through which we can balance is to ensure that we put in place safeguards. So if you don't have safeguards, it's going to be very difficult to claim that you are applying NbS. So there'll be people out there to criticize or to critique what you're doing. Reason, the safeguards were not adequate and they were not enforced. Okay. For those men awards, thank you and wish you all the best. I hope you have qualified. Yes, yeah, I think the mark there, so maybe some people will not qualify. All right, Christine, thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I think he needs another. We are coming to the end of our NbS session for our academy. Hope you've learned one or two things. And hopefully, that the next time we meet, we shall be having positive feedback about the NbS ideas or projects that you have established wherever you're coming from. It is not too late to get into the wagon of NbS because we need to work with nature to even get more from it than what we are already getting. The quiz has been marked. They're going to begin distributing your papers. We shouldn't be squared unless everyone has qualified to get a certificate. But there's some who did only one quiz. So I'm wondering, should we also give them a certificate? No? Equity. So anyway, we are just going to give feedback forms, help us it is just for a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, so that we can see what we can do better the next time we meet, what you think we should change, or maybe if there's something that we also missed out, then it should also be fine. In case you also want to join us to write a concept for funding, that is also welcome. Thank you for your time. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's something, NbS is something which is very serious, and a few CSOs and NGOs who are still embracing this. And Doctor, thank you with your team for bringing this into the knowledge of many, because there are certain things that Dr. Patrick was sharing that some of us, I think they were not well acquainted to. It's just something which I wanted to pass across. I know we are here, the leaders, CSO leaders, we have different organizations and we have information that we always want to share with the community and also with the people out there. I was just trying to invite and give this to like a pledge to all of us that we have free airtime always on TV, that's UCTV, Uganda Catholic Television. We have a show which is called Environment Dialogue, which we discuss issues of environment, climate change. It's next year we are giving it 2 hours short, where you can come and at least let the world know what you're doing, what are the ways forward, what's happening, especially things to do with NbS. Because if you speak that word NbS, someone might know that it's NbS TV. That's what can come in someone's mind. You know, when he was talking about NbS Academy, someone will say, what do you mean by that? So it's just something which I'm saying that please kindly to all the leaders, whatever you have and you think that you want to pass across the air, you want to discuss with us, you can contact us, you can contact me. We'll be able to give you the platform to share your views, your information on the TV. Thank you very much. God bless you.
So we are in the closing. And you are the people between our lunch. How you are between our lunch? By delaying us here. We have colleagues going as far as Soro. We have colleagues going as closer as Nabiratu. Yeah, I'm excited that we have champion in this room. And as you're giving us feedback, be honest. The food was poor, please tell us, but you also cautioned the hotel. The food was little, tell us. That's that the hotel can give. The venue was not conducive. If you think the political skills you are wanting, feel free to tell us. As we go into our closing of awarding certificates, certificates will be awarded to only those who have passed, who have met the pass mark. You have changed. You are lucky. In those days, Dr. Byakagawa wasn't massive. So you were among the lucky few.
Next year, we'll be going to Brazil. COP 30. All of you know the COP is going to be in the middle of Amazon. So you are going to be negotiating with nature. You have never seen a snake with a head equal to the size of this radius of Durham. Never seen a mosquito with the size of a cockroach. Some of you, when they tell you about diversity, you will think of your antelopes and kidney. I've never seen about diversity expressed. So if I were you, the package I have for Christmas, I would reduce it a bit such that they start the saving for them. Are we all finished? If the evaluation of their fitness, please be as honest as possible, because this evaluation helps us to plan. Maybe what we didn't tell you, the next couple of participants in the NbS Academy will have to be different. So we would not want to have anyone in the next set training to keep track of those who are trained is why we are having this evaluation. So we'll have in the database. Know who has ever been trained and who has never been trained. Once everyone is done, it's very important.
I see the correction of feedback is taking wrong. As we wait in our guests who are going to hand over the certificates to the trainees today, we just want to give a chance to 3 reflections. Tell us what each of you think is going to use this knowledge after, as the team is coming in, going to the official ceremony and certificates. We want someone, or at least I want to change this condition. We need 1 person from GVL. For GVL team, I sorting get us 1. Then the rest, we'll need 1 person from the public agency and 1 person from non-state, apart from the GVL. So, can we start with the public agencies? I heard we have finance, NEMA, and CCD. So who is ready? Who is ready? Should we start with the GVM? Hey, I don't see volunteer. Everyone is eager for the certificate now. Yes, but also your feedback, tell us your future plan. You never know, some of them might be funded. Okay, can we start with non-state?
And I'm thinking, okay. And I'm thinking, it's not see how do we be able to advance the nature solutions as part of the intended achievement which we will see in the NbS actions.
Madam? Yeah. Public addresses? Okay, you are still consulting. Anyone from GVL? Okay. Should I now have to select? That's not it. So some of you know already that is ready. Check. So this is interesting. Have fun. Let me find out how far. Move.
Okay. Can you bring them this? Okay, colleagues, sorry for that delay. We have decided to now abandon every remaining item, roles, because the time is not on our side. And before me has been your facilitator for the 3 days. Can you join in hand? Then we have Dr. Patrick Gaba, who is going to be master of ceremony for this next function. And in that regard, he's going to be in charge of the next action or running over the certificates. So, what is going to be happening? Your name is going to be read. I don't know the best spot for the photo. The photo person, where is the best spot? The academy? Yeah. Maybe it's fair to keep the NbS banner. I think that would be better. You need a white background. Better put it behind me. Which one? This one. You see how you people don't want technology. Yeah, will be better, right? Okay. So I want to know whether it's going to be read. You'll have the opportunity to shake hands with Dr. Yakagaba. If you never enter this class formally, but at least you have the team at quality. So I want you.
Thank you, Robert. I think I'm here. Robert, you have a take on this one. Are you listening?
Yes, bro.
This research should have been done by the chair board. I used to be on the board of this organization many years ago. Pioneer board. Should be clapped for me on that one. So I was not the chair, but I was the youngest on the board, but very noisy in that board. And, we served 9 years. At that time, I hope we have changed the rules now. We had 3 terms and we fully utilized the 3 terms, and they were 3 years each. So it's nice to see that the organization has grown. Those of you on some boards and you don't want to leave, whether because they might not make it, I'm a good example, but we left and Emily is still running. So Robert, thank you very much for steering together with your team and the new board that should have been here.
So my job is really to appreciate you. Thank you very much for joining the training. We hope you're going to be the ambassadors of NbS. Also, you will promote NbS wherever you are. This is not an easy task because the NbS keeps changing, so some of the materials might become obsolete. Not worry, the method is still the same. That we value nature and we know that nature can help us address societal challenges. So the job I've been given is very simple. Christian will read the name, come over, we shake your hands. And I think there were two facilitators. Who else participated? Agatha, you better come here. These people need to shake your hands since you are the examiner. And yeah, they might not easily, it's not easy to do quizzes. I saw mature people here, mothers, fathers, husbands, boyfriends somewhere. They were making their life very difficult. With the number 4, a number 10, the second quiz. So I think that please come over. Or you want to stand because you're only going to shake your hands. Okay. Let's put our hands together for these 3 that have made what is it to teach adults, especially adults who know or who think they know? What is it? So I have a lot of respect for them for having done a good job. So when you come, you Christine will read the name.
We're going here. Official photograph. All of us. Let's say you present all participated. I'm speaking as a chairboard. Yes. Photographer, it's okay for them.
So the photographer.
Where's the official photographer?
You see the camera is down. The official photographer is handling the women negative.
This camera is considered to be certified by them.
Felix Chelimo, Kamari.
Is behind them. So the visual photographer.
Othello. Peter Diapiamba. Sydney Madera. Susan Kaitsa Wasubiri.
Diane.
reason. Adrian Seaman. Emmanuel Kabishanga. Miriam Kawala. Anna Peter. Iris Leviza. Dickens Ochero. Just change. Stephen Hamilton. Sarah Isaac Solo. Leah Ayebade. Elizabeth Asino. Good, Margot.
How many sites?
Cynthia.
Very good.
Jerry Damita. Sebastian Chairman? Fiona Kainza? Viola Goa?
Get another opportunity to close the ceremony, the award ceremony. Let's congratulate all ourselves. Let's put the hands together for the instructors, the facilitators. Let's clap for WWF and Emily that can make this possible. Can I tell you a secret? Do you like secrets? I feel very jealous that you guys have these certificates and I don't have. So that's how much I value what you go to school. Hopefully I will go for another academy and also get a certificate. But we hope that we'll be able to use this certificate to promote NbS. And feel free, I'm sure that these ladies and gentlemen and I myself will be available to continue supporting you as you push for NbS. I wish you all the best and a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year till we meet again. Thank you. And I officially close the training.
So, lunch is served here. You have a coupon. So lunch is served, and each of you has a coupon. Please, let's have our lunch. For your facilitation, please, it will be on your mobile money. So it will come as you on the road. Okay? So from us, it has been a very wonderful 3-day exchange and training, and we look forward to meeting next year. So wish you a Merry Christmas and a blessed 2025. Goodbye. Viola?